This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you. Thank you. Seeing that it's 7 o'clock, I will call the meeting to order. The Committee of Adjustment, Thursday, August 22nd, 2024. And it's session 05-2024. Call to order. Second point, emergency exits in the unlikely event that we've got to vacate the building. Matt, behind you and over here to your left are the emergency exits. Before I forget, I wrote this down. Meeting tonight is being recorded. It's not being live streamed, so we don't have participation from the general public, but just so that we all know, the meeting is being recorded and will be available on the town's website within the next couple of days. Committee members' declarations of pecuniary interest, you can make them now or at any point during the meeting. Point number 4, approval of the agenda. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved by Dave Carbert, seconded by Corinne Pollard. Any objections? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. Approval of minutes. Our last session, 04-2024, which I've got in front of me here. Any questions, comments, corrections to that? Can I have somebody move to approve them?
I'll move.
Moved by Corinne Pollard and seconded by Dave Carbert. Minutes are approved. I always say this, and Matt, I think this is your first time at a Town of Mono Committee of Adjustment meeting. So quickly, our meetings are public. They're open to the public. Anybody can come here and that. So as we do with the same style of council, there's a public question period. There's nobody in the audience here, but for good order's sake, public question period. Seeing no questions from the public, moving right on to the business at hand here tonight. So let me, bear with me. I'm going to read this for the sake of it being on the record. So this is a minor variance application for a reduced interior side yard setback for a garage and sunroom. This is at 713164 First Line EHS of Mono. And again, the application is A0424. The applicant is seeking relief for a minor variance from section 20-2-E of the Town of Mono zoning bylaw 78- I never know whether that's an I or a 1. Mike, do you know? Is that a 78-1?
-1, correct?
Thank you. 78-1 is amended, which requires an interior side yard setback for garages in the rural zone A that this is in of 4.58 meters, which is 15 feet minimum, and a 9.15 meter or 30.01 feet for all other buildings or structures. The applicant is seeking to permit a 1.2 meter or 3.93 feet interior side yard setback for the garage portion of the addition, and a 5.19 meter, which is 17.02 feet interior side yard setback for the sunroom portion of the addition. So that's the introduction to the application. Let me just make sure that I'm going through the proper things. So we do have a report here dated Thursday, August 22nd, from our planning consultant, Deborah Alexander of Alexander Planning. We've all received this. Deborah, you're online. Do you have anything more to add to your August 22nd, 2024 report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I have nothing else to add to the report.
Very good. Thank you, Deborah. And thank you for attending here in case any of the members have any questions for you. Matt, now you're up. So if you could please, we have your material here, but turn the mic on, please. Thank you. Um, if you can, if there's anything additional or anything that you want to highlight from your reports and the materials that you've put here, this is your opportunity, please.
So for the sake of process, evening committee members, my name is Matthew Rebo of Perspective Views, Unit 23, 5359 Timberlea Boulevard, Mississauga, and I'm representing the owners of 713164 First Line EHS Town of Mono and their application here tonight. So I've reviewed the planning staff report. We've submitted our own justification letter, and we've produced other materials. And I guess what I would like to add is in the last hours, we did receive 2 letters of support, which we did submit to committee from both adjacent neighbors. The owner has had extensive conversations with them. I know that there's going to probably be some questions about the language in those letters, but I can certainly speak to what I know of. So I'll do my best to represent the owners and their intentions.
Very good. Thank you, Matt. At this time, if there was anybody in the audience, it would be their opportunity for questions and comments from the public. Seeing as there are none, then we go directly to the Committee of Adjustment members for questions, comments. So we're going to ask questions first, and then I'll close the public meeting part, and then the committee will have discussion. So Eric, can I start with you, please? Thank you.
Matt, I just have a question for you, and I actually have a question for Deborah as well. Do you have the drawing A400?
Yes.
That was sort of the last submission.
Right in front of me.
This drawing shows the existing house with the proposed addition and the house to the north. My question is, you've given us your opinion that the variance that you've sought tonight does conform with the Planning Act. My question is, if that garage is built and the owner to the north wanted to make the same request of us and bring their house to within 1.2 meters of the lot line, would you consider that to be a conforming use or a acceptable use under, or acceptable variance under the Planning Act?
I would have to say yes, but obviously less. So I will agree that there's an argument to be made that that would be a greater impact than the rest of the zoning and what is adjacent. However, I would say that because this is so close to different zoning, we're 3 properties in from the south neighborhood where the zoning does permit 1.2 meters, it's not as great of an impact. As well, it's only a single story and it's a garage type use. And I can justify some points on that as well and why they're thinking that it is appropriate. So to answer your question a little bit more pointedly, I can see the concern. However, I do believe it is still appropriate under the current planning.
The problem that I have is that would then have a separation between the 2 houses of only 2.4 meters, which is really out of character for that neighborhood.
Again, so agreed if it was more prominent, but being so close to the adjacent neighborhood, we believe that it is in fact appropriate if neighbors or if these other adjacent owners did want to build so close to the neighboring property line. And it's also not both sides. It is one side. And so we're maintaining a separation on the other side as well. And so I think because of that, and there's a few other properties I can pull up that have built either a garage or a structure closer to the property line within proximity of the main dwelling. So that would be my fairest response to your question. I understand the concern. I would say that it's only on one side of the property, and again, adjacent or very dwellings or properties within proximity have similar situations.
Thank you. Deborah, do you have that drawing A400?
I may, it's not up in front of me right now. I don't know whether it was sent to me today by email or not.
It was late. It was a late delivery that,
Okay,
Well,
let's look.
we got that a couple of days ago.
yes.
Yes, yeah.
But my question for you, Deborah, is really the same question. You know, if we allow the variance tonight and we have a garage within 1.2 meters, my concern is that if the neighbor wants the same relief, would you think that that was an appropriate relief for the neighbor to the north to bring the two houses within 2.4 meters of each other?
Yeah, I
Or is this-
understand, through you, Mr. Chair, I do understand the question, I understand where you're coming from. I did visit the site. I did look at the context in terms of what was immediately around it and also what was a little bit down the street. And I agree, there's a change in the neighborhood, but it's not that far removed from the properties further south that are a little bit closer together. The other thing that I took into consideration here when I looked at this was, in this case, we've got non-habitable space is being added to the same side of this house as the neighbor to the north, who also has non-habitable space on that side of his house. It's also, it's not terribly unusual to see a 1.2 meter setback in a subdivision situation. I get that this isn't, this is not a subdivision like the one down the road, but like I said, it's not that far removed from it. It's not as jarring as it could be if it was more isolated.
These are estate lots, like 1 acre lots. The whole point is you get 1 acre to work with. You got lots of space going back.
Dave, sorry.
Sorry.
Eric, are you finished?
No,
Yes, that was my only question. I wanted to hear from both of you on that question. I mean, I just wanted, are we in a situation here where it's first in time? The first one gets the variance and the other one then is cut out. That was my question.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Dave, since you started,
Yeah, no, I
please
just-
carry on.
Sorry to interrupt. No, before I came here, I actually looked at the property again. And the house in question here, they've basically got a drive going back with existing garages on the perpendicular to where they're planning to do.
Yes,
And there's a huge retaining wall going down the property line, except it's not exactly going straight. It's already encroached to the property line. So my question back is, how are they going to address the grade?
So I think they'd be willing to rebuild that retaining wall. I understand.
They'd have
the
to
point that-
because
yeah.
there's no choice
exactly.
based on the request.
So again, the owner, we can make that a condition as part of approval for a permit. They would have no issue with that, especially, I understand that the current existing situation is encroaching. So if that certainly was made a condition, they would understand that.
I don't think they get their building permit otherwise, but I'm just
Well, it's
making an assumption.
it's an existing condition, so I'm not entirely sure how the building department would treat that.
But it's not big enough to hold the expansion.
Well, I believe that it will be affected as we dig the foundation for this addition, so it'd have to be redone properly.
Yeah.
And so in that event, that's where you're right, they may be able to make that a condition. If it is going to be affected, that it be reinstated properly, although both parties are in favor of it, kind of like a fence. I don't see it being an issue. So again, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe the planning staff can speak to that. My experience would say that it depends on both parties.
Can the planning department make a comment?
yeah, Deborah, can you comment on what was just said, please? It's Bob speaking.
Okay.
Deborah?
So yeah, so to clarify the question, you're asking whether the retaining wall should be reconstructed and whether you should add that as a condition?
Yes. Is that
Okay.
correct, Dave?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, so through you, Mr. Chair, the planning report actually says, as the last commission, the last condition is recommended that the town engineer Burnside has to look at and approve a grading plan. Any retaining walls would form part of that grading plan, so they would be subject to RJ Burnside approval anyway in order to clear this condition.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So
Sorry,
on,
Mike, did you have,
No, that's correct. The OBC, any OBC on any building permit on this would have to go through a site plan, especially when there's grading issues. So it's all part of the
Thank you.
conditions.
makes sense.
Dave?
On A400, the second shadow diagram on there is supposed to represent the neighboring house.
Yes. Yes. To the north.
So is there something that's showing their setback today and the property in question setback?
We have.
Couldn't figure it out.
Oh, okay, understood. It wasn't on our original, like, we have the site plan. We had the registered plan of subdivision. So we don't have the exact setback of the neighboring structure. I do believe it was about, I'm just guessing here, but I think it was about 16 feet or 18 feet or so.
Okay.
Somewhere in that range.
Well, I assume that it had to be to the minimum standard, the minimum standard, which was 15 feet. So they all had to have been built to that standard or they would not have been approved.
Originally.
That's my assumption, but I think it's a reasonable assumption.
That's all my questions at this point.
Very good. Thank you, Dave. Corinne Pollard, please.
I have actually no questions. They've already been asked. So thank you very much, Dave, for asking my questions with regards to grading and just confirmed also that it needs to be approved by Burnside. So I have no questions.
Okay, very good. Thank you. My turn. When I first looked at this, I was concerned. 1.2 meters, 4 feet, let's say. It's not a lot of space. It doesn't even give them space to to put in trees or something to mitigate the look of the garage. And to Eric's point, if we approve this, then we set a precedent, and that I'm a little, so I'm reluctant, and I'm a little concerned when I look at these two letters, and that frankly some of their facts are just wrong. Mr. Diol, however he pronounces his name, his second paragraph. Additionally, we understand this plan has received prior approval from the town. Mike,
speak
you
to
can
that.
correct me on that, but I've been on this committee of adjustment for over 25 years. I don't remember any of that. So I think that's
I can speak to that, or I can at least explain.
okay. What Mr. Diol's thinking is,
He
or who
was-
told him what?
He was speaking about the planning staff report, that's all. So not,
Okay.
he didn't understand the terminology.
Okay. And the other point, which both letters are talking about here, have been other similar applications in our neighborhood that have been previously approved. And considering we have no objections to previously approved, I don't know of any of those. I don't know what he's talking about, or Joshua Martino. Multiple examples in the neighborhood where this setback has been required and granted to accommodate a structure or addition. For the record, I live in Island Lake Estates and have lived there for 19 years. So I saw when these 6 houses up the first line were built, and that. So I don't know who told these people this, and that, to my knowledge, that's just not true.
Again, I think it's a misunderstanding. I would agree with you. I'm not aware of any records. We certainly did our research, and so I can agree with you.
Yeah,
I think it was not understanding the different zoning um, bylaws for the different areas.
it's
It-
possible.
Yeah. That's all. I'm just guessing again. I can't speak for
Yeah.
them. They're not here. But that is what I imagine they're talking about because
Okay.
again, you did bring up one other point, your first point. Sorry.
About the fact that 1.2 meters was too small. It was really, that was my first reaction when I saw this was, frankly, that's not enough. That is still my feeling about this. And I know that there were some discussions today, I think with yourself or whatever, whether the applicant would consider uh, as something more than 1.2 meters. Let me say this first. I've got no problem with the setback for the sunroom. No problem at all. I don't think that the sunroom, I'm happy to recommend to approve that variance. It's this garage that at 1.2 meters, I don't want to set that precedent. And to Eric's point, what, it potentially could mean for other residents there.
Okay, so if I could speak to that. So regarding
Yeah.
precedent, we all know that these aren't committee of adjustments don't set precedent in the sense that just because it's permitted in one situation, it's relevant for the next. And I think both as the municipal planning report states and our planning staff report and the research that we've done, we do think it's suitable. We think it meets the 4 test as each application has to be looked at on its own merits. And so regarding the precedent, but I understand the point that you're making is allowing it once and others trying to go for something similar. On your other point regarding these being estate lots, that's precisely the conversation I had with the owner today. And his point was they have equipment that they want to store and they don't want to look at it in the backyard. And so their thought was that this makes it easier for them to be able to drive through if needed with lawnmower equipment and other equipment to do future work, let's say. And I discussed reducing the setback, and that really impacted the size of the sunroom that they were hoping to build, which is what's currently being proposed, as well as the transitions that we've gotten creative here with the stairwell and walk-in closet, et cetera. So trying to work with existing site conditions, their intended use or future use that we're proposing, and what they're hoping to achieve. So again, because these are estate lots, we thought that it was, well, not this is the reason for being appropriate, but we understood his point, which is that he's able to park equipment indoors and out of sight, making it less, unruly, even for the neighbor. And that was part of the conversation too, was they had no issues looking at the side of the structure, the way that we're proposing it, and they'd rather see that than a large fence. I understand a tree line would be nice, and I certainly I understand if that's proposed. There is room on the neighboring property to put a tree line. I get that's not the exact point that we're discussing today. However, um, again, the current owner of the adjacent property, um, uh, they seem to understand that, yes, it would be more appropriate to store equipment that this owner wants to store indoors than to have to look at it. And again, because of the close proximity to neighboring development, we thought that a drive-through garage would be appropriate in this case.
Okay, thank you. I go by there frequently, and it is an eyesore. All those vehicles that are in the driveway there now. I'm a little confused because the house has a 3-bay garage there already.
Understood?
And I have a 2-bay garage. I'm on 3/4 of an acre. This is 1 acre, so it's close. I got a 2-bay garage and I can put my cars in there and my lawn tractor and the like. And I'm not going to be critical or suggest that Mr. Gobato make better use of the 3-bay garages that he's already got. They're the fact that there's always vehicles in that driveway, again, I'm not going to speculate on that. That's not our job here, to speculate how somebody's using their 3 garage bays. But it still leaves me at the point of thinking that 1.2 meters isn't enough. So I guess an appropriate question, and I don't know the feelings of the other committee members, but an appropriate question is Mr. Gabato, am I pronouncing his name correct?
Gabato.
Thank you. I was in sales. I like to get names right. I mean, is he at all receptive to increasing from 1.2 meters to something other than 1.2, somewhere between 1.2 meters and 4.58 meters?
I can speak to that. We discussed that. I tried to negotiate that with him, asking if I had the opportunity to negotiate that setback. Would he be open to that? And he simply responded with, I don't think so. His reason for that was he believes that this is appropriate. It'll make better use for him of this property, the way that we're proposing it. And he'd be willing to basically appeal it at OLT, knowing that we have planning staff support as well as our own consultants that we've hired to take a look at the current planning policies and whether or not it meets the 4 tests. So that was his position. We had an extensive conversation, and that was his final decision.
Okay. So you're authorized to speak on his behalf to say the answer to my question of considering changing from 1.2. A definitive answer is no.
I spoke with municipal staff today about raising that discussion with the client to see if they were inclined. I certainly was willing to try and redesign the, I'll tell you, I suggested maybe we do a double wide car garage door. So it's 16 feet wide and we get a little bit, and his answer to that would be, but then he's reducing his width on the exit on the rear. So that's where he basically didn't want to change the current proposed.
Okay. Again, I'm not going to presume to know what Kevin Gabato is doing with that exit, the rear exit there, and that he's not taking heavy equipment out into his backyard. I know that, and I know the width of a lawn tractor because I've owned 3 or 4 of them. So I was hoping that he was going to be here so that we could have that direct discussion with him, and that I don't think it's an unreasonable question for this committee to ask. So, however, he could not be here, so it's something that this committee has to consider. So,
Understood.
I think I'm done. Thank you. You've given good answers in that. I think we clarified the situation in that. With that, it's now time for, I say close the public meeting. We're not closing anything. So, committee, I'm going to turn it to, I've said what I think about it. I would prefer, so that rest of the committee knows, I would prefer to negotiate with Mr. Gabato to increase that 1.2 meters and that. So that's what I'm going to say about that. But anyhow, Eric, do you want to start, please?
I do agree that precedent does not bind this committee. This committee looks at every case that comes before us, but we are bound by the Planning Act. We can't operate outside the Planning Act. So I did review the Berkeley Parliament case, which was a 2018 appellate case, and they used the term that I'm now going to steal, numerical deviation.
Okay.
But in this case, the numerical deviation is down to 26%. There's no way on a mathematical term is that a minor variance. So, but Berkeley Parliament, and there's been cases that go either way, but Berkeley Parliament summarizes it and says that a committee has the authority to look at minor in context. So it's not just numerical deviation that governs it. But when I look at the list of factors that this appellate tribunal tells us that we should be looking at, it really comes down to the context, the reasons for the bylaw, and the impact in the neighborhood. And that was really what the point of my question is that if you're absorbing all of that variance, that's way out of character for this neighborhood. And it also leaves the position what your neighbor is now bottled in. We have looked at, this committee has, last year, we've looked at variances which are significantly outside the bylaw. But in those cases where we have done secondary dwellings, well outside the limit that the town has set by bylaw, but in those cases there were either compelling, they were both compelling environmental reasons that if they had stayed within the with the envelope, it would have had to take down more trees or disrupt more environmental concerns. And we also had a provincial policy statement that encouraged us to add infill housing. So we had those factors that we could look at a very large numerical deviation and stay within that concept of minor. But in this case, this is not minor. And it does affect the streetscape. This is a whole row of houses which are on large lots, large houses with large spaces in between. In Ms. Alexander's report, she says that one of the purposes of the zoning bylaw is to maintain the character of the streetscape and the overall neighborhood. The character of this neighborhood is widely spaced, large houses, large lots. So I can't see how we, as a committee, can get around the limits of the Planning Act. It's not a precedent that I'm concerned, but it's the Planning Act. We are allowed to give minor variances. This is not minor, and I can't see anything in the materials today that allow us to go outside that requirement. So I am opposed to the application.
Corinne, thank you, Eric. Oh, Dave? Okay. At next meeting, when I ask somebody for their opinion, I'm hoping that they will. Dave, please, Dave Carbert.
Yes, as I brought up before, these are huge 1 acre lots and pretty much all the houses are centered. And to take two by allowing a variance, the fellow that owns that property right now is saying, yeah, sure, it's been pre-approved, so yeah, I'm good for it. It doesn't bother me. But you're changing the value of the house. If I was the neighbor, that's the first thing I'm going to say. I got a whole lot, and this guy's right on my lot line. And Eric basically had the justification for it. It's not minor. And I don't approve.
Very good. Thank you, Dave. Corinne?
Yeah, thank you. I had some of the same concerns with respect to, as we talk about the current neighbors and the current agreement being shown misleading information that has not been approved. And as Dave has mentioned, it's one thing for me to look at a document that I feel is finalized and that I need to accept simply because it's already approved. I think the letters would have potentially have been written a little differently had they known that they were simply providing their consent and or not consent on an open discussion versus something that's already been decided. But I also do agree when you do look at the site and when you start to talk about the drainage, the foundation wall that's there, structural, I don't think it's so much that maybe that current neighbor feels that it's acceptable, But as we all know, houses turn over and those neighbors don't necessarily stay in the same place. We have to look at the future as well, and in terms of what the landscape of that entire street looks like and the intention of what that neighborhood is to look like. As mentioned, large houses on large lots, and this just seems to be the monster that, has taken over right to the lot line. So I would agree with my colleagues that I'm not in agreement with this.
Thank you. And I've already said that I'm not in agreement with it. To Eric's point, this is not consistent with the nature of this neighborhood of those 6 houses in a row there. It is absolutely not. And if we allow this, then who knows who will do what. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not a conspiracy theory guy. But the potential is there for that. So we're in, Matt, we're in a position here. You can tell that the unanimous opinion is to deny it. So I think we have 2 options here. Is that we can deny it today, and Mr. Gabato can take it to the land tribunal, or we could defer it. If you think there's any chance that between now and our meeting next month, that Mr. Gabato will reconsider this, if the answer to that is no, then we're unanimous. We'll move to deny it. So that's my question to you, and I'm giving you that out because it is an option.
I appreciate it.
Committee agreed. Yep, it is an option. And that, in fairness, again, unfortunately, he's not here tonight. Maybe that's just as well. I mean that in a kind way. So I'm going to put that question to you. If we defer it, is there a hope that that he will change his mind, or do we come back in a month and deny it then?
So my first question was going to be whether or not we would be on the next hearing. So understanding that it would be heard in a month's time is appealing to me. Also, if we were to go to OLT, I know it wouldn't be resolved by then either. So with that said, and I will say I have appreciated some of the comments, including the feedback from you, Screen Bullard, which is the statements made in those letters. So by deferring, we can actually clarify that and either have those owners revise it to make it just a simple statement that they support it, or amend their letter more appropriately. So
Can I just interrupt
Sure.
while you're on that point, please? With all due respect, I don't think it matters whether the neighbors change their letters or not. Corinne's point is a very good one, is that those are the people that are living there now. That will change. And that, so I do like to hear from people. I do like to hear from residents. Anybody that knows me, been almost 30 years on the planning committee of Mono and the committee of adjustment. For me, one of the most important, most fundamental things is that people express their opinions, and that's why when I read these letters here, in the most polite terms that I can say is, there's a lot of nonsense in them, and I don't like it. And it almost looks as though they were told words and that. So I don't like it. And if we took out all of the rest of that stuff, it still doesn't change my mind. So that's, I wanted to just address that one first.
Yep.
It politely suggesting don't spend the time on that, but you're welcome to. But so your next point, though, please, Matt.
So yeah, I feel like we were very rushed in being able to discuss negotiating alternatives with the owners. And so again, that and some of the other points made, I do have the authority to agree to defer this, and I think I'm going to accept that. I appreciate the offer, especially knowing that all of you are opposing it today. And I hope that there's some room for negotiation, or at least more clarity into voicing their reasons why. Maybe that will help convince or change minds. I don't know. But I would, again, I appreciate the opportunity, and I would agree that maybe a deferral is the most appropriate action tonight.
Okay. Thank you. Now, I have said that as the chair, but now I got to put it to the,
Of course.
but because,
He has no authority.
yeah, I have no authority. No, I'm one vote here. Matt, I was in professional sales for 40 years. It is one of my most fundamental beliefs that there is nothing that two reasonable people or reasonable people can't sort out. That's one of my most fundamental things. And that, but we need to work. You need to work. We need to work with the owner here to reach an acceptable compromise here. Because again, you heard it here, and for the record, as it stands, unanimously, we would deny this application. So we need to get to that point of reasonable people talking about reasonable alternatives. This is something that I was thinking about. For gosh sakes, I've lost sleep over this, waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm serious. This committee, we take this stuff seriously. We do. You can see that. We've all put a lot of thought into it. So having said that, with that, then I'm going to say to the committee, what is the wish of the committee on this? Mike, did you have something?
Sorry, Chair, sorry, Bob.
Thank
If you wouldn't mind, I suggest a motion that would be potential for you to read and put on the table.
Sure. Yeah. Committee.
That the Committee of Adjustment for the Town of Mono has reviewed the following planning report prepared by Alexander Planning Inc., dated Thursday, October 22nd, 24, for minor variance application A0424, and following discussion with the applicant, make motion that the application be deferred.
Okay, committee.
I'd like to have the application number. I don't like a resolution that doesn't refer to the exact number. A04.
Yeah, that was, I think I might have stumbled through that, but that was, so Committee of Adjustment for the Town of Mono has reviewed the planning report prepared by Alexander Planning Inc., dated Thursday, August 22nd, 24, for minor variance application A0424, and following discussions with the applicant, make motion that the application be deferred.
Moved by Eric Forney, seconded
I'll second.
Corinne Pollard. And any objections to that? Seeing none, that passes unanimously. Thank you, Mike, for crafting that. We will hear this next month's meeting, Mike. Eh? We got other things, so we'll move that to the Dave. Yes, of course, please.
What I would suggest, because of the setbacks, is you put on your design hat
Yes.
and pull a rabbit out
Understood.
and then have some serious discussion.
Yep.
Because the obvious thing is to change that design to make it more reasonable. It's
Understood.
pretty much that simple.
I agree.
That
I
was my only
agree.
comment.
But Matt, now you can go back to Kevin and you can tell him it was unanimous. They were going to deny it. I don't know if he has a desire to have a nice meeting with the Ontario Land Tribunal, but unless it maybe not, maybe yes, maybe no. That's a gamble at the best of times. We all know that. But anyhow, that that is his option if a month from now there's no change and we deny it. So, yeah. But anyhow, listen. I want to thank you. You're very professional.
Thank you.
But now you have something very concrete to discuss with your client.
Certainly.
All right, that's that. I don't know where you live, but you can go home now and watch the Argos game. Yeah, thank you, Matt. We'll see you at our September meeting. It's always the fourth Thursday, but staff can help you with all of that stuff. So, and you know, just as I've said, the two neighbors that have got a whole bunch of facts wrong, and I you know, looks to me like they were helped with writing their letters. I don't know that for a fact, but you know, that you heard it here, doesn't really matter.
Yeah, no,
I hope you feel that this was a good discussion and a fair hearing.
Oh, I think it was fair.
Thank you.
The opportunity
Oh, Matt, turn your, sorry,
Yeah,
turn
sorry, I
your,
thought we were.
oh, well, until we turn off the recording. Yeah,
Um,
no, thank you.
Yeah, I was speaking very candidly, but yeah, I do appreciate the opportunity. I will make the most of it as much as it is in my power. I'll go from there. We'll see you in a month's time.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt.
Have a good evening.
Hey, thanks for your time. You too, Matt.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. That is that. Motion, declaration, result. There we go. Okay. Matt, we got a couple of other things to do here, but you don't need to hang around for them.
Have a good night.
Matt, thank you. You too. And look forward to seeing you next month. Thanks. You too. Okay. Unfinished business. None, but actually there is. Mike, I'm going to ask Simi to put on this. I know that she's using a format for these agendas here. Unfinished business is one thing. We also need a line item there, new business. Yeah, we do. And that, so, and that's to the point that, that I'm going to make here now. I just read,
So
some-
sorry, Bob.
Yeah.
So you have new business already, which was your minor variance application tonight.
oh,
So if-
other business.
So if you're adding something to the agenda, I would recommend that it go to the next agenda.
Yeah, not to this one. No.
Okay, okay,
This
thank
is
you.
just, yeah. Mike, thank you. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, no, that, I've thought about this. I meant to say it to Simi. It should be unfinished business and then other business. So Simi, if you're listening, add that one to the next one, because what I'm going to talk about here is other business. I've even done it wrong. Okay, I read today, the province has come out with a new provincial planning statement. Yes, yeah. And with that, and we've talked about it before, I think we need to arrange some training. And you know, with Deborah Alexander, this is all new. It was in the news today. A new provincial planning statement. How much of it will affect the rural town of Mono, I don't know. But that aside, what I was going to ask once we, you could even go online and click on it and get an enormous PDF document of the new provincial planning statement. I'm going to ask for Mike, training. Once Deborah, you know, looks at all of this and that, we need to arrange a training session for the Committee of Adjustment. We constantly should be getting training because some of us, I'll say myself, are a little slow. So I need training. I'm joking, but does everybody agree if there is a new provincial planning statement and a big document attached to it? And I don't, you know, so I'd like to arrange that.
So if I may, to the committee. So this is fresh, obviously.
Yep.
So normally what happens and would occur was Watson and Associates, which is the town's economics advisor and advisors throughout all of Ontario for municipalities. They generally come with an overview of the impacts and or AMCTO or AMO would provide what the Coles notes of this are for municipalities, rural municipalities. So the clerk and I are currently waiting on that, and discussions with with our planning consultant would definitely be part of that moving forward. And once we get the Coles notes on the amendments, we'd be more than happy to bring that as other business for this committee and
Okay.
the planning committee for that matter.
Yes, exactly. You know, I suggest a joint meeting of the both committees once we get our heads around this thing. And that, and again, I don't even know what changed, but committee, are we in agreement that we would like that that kind of training? And committee members, if there's anything else that you think we need training on, please let me know, because you know, we're a different beast here. We're quasi judicial, and that Eric can explain that a lot better than I can. But you know, it behooves us to be up to date on all of this stuff. So if there's something that you feel that we're missing, please let me know. And you know, Mike and I are you know, constant in touch with each other, and that. So that makes sense. That was my thing. Committee members, any other business?
Not for me.
Update on the new director?
Oh, yes. Mike?
So I would recommend that you hold true to our procedural bylaw that when you add items to the agenda, that they are agreed upon by the committee at the beginning of the meeting to modify the agenda, because you are a public entity. This did go out to a public body. And if you add things, then the public didn't have time to review the content of your meeting. And people may have wanted to be in. So that's a snippet on amending your agenda during the process when you've already notified the public of its contents. But with respect to the director of planning, that will remain with the CAO and administrative staff, and I will update you as required.
Okay, thank you. Mike, you know, thanks for your point about that. I really didn't think that I was changing the agenda.
Unfortunately, you got the council side of me coming out
Yeah.
on it
No, you're turning into a clerk.
to bring in. I am deputy
You're
clerk.
turning into a
I am
clerk.
deputy clerk, but
Yeah,
the biggest thing,
so-
we have, Bob, and you know that, is transparency, and all that is part of the public notification, and that heads up for people is really really important.
Okay, no,
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Simi, put what I just said about the provincial planning statement, put that under unfinished business. So
Yeah.
we didn't change the agenda.
Perfect. Talk about it again next meeting. Absolutely. We'll have more information.
Yeah, no, it's important. It just came up. And Simi, please, on the next month's agenda, put unfinished business, then other business. And under other business, just leave it blank. And if something comes up, then we'll do it. Is the committee in agreement on that? We need to be able to discuss things. So,
Yes.
yeah, thank you. That's it. Committee members, anything else? No? With that, the usual thank yous to staff. Mike, thank you. You know, great input here tonight. Simi, thank you. Deborah Alexander, it's your first time with us online here. Thank you very much for your input and your participation.
Thank you. You're
still there.
welcome. Oh, yeah, I'm
Oh,
still
you-
here. You're very
still there.
welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, Deborah, thank you. You're doing a great job. We appreciate it. So thank you to everybody. And last but not least, thank you, committee members. Job well done tonight. So it's one of the reasons I've always say it. I'll say it again. I'm always proud of this committee and the work that we do. So with that,
Motion to close the
motion to
meeting.
close, Corinne Pollard, seconded by Dave Carbert. And seeing that nobody's arguing about that, we're closing at 7:55, or send me whatever time you got there.